Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Tip Tuesday with Bass and with Buddy. I just want to briefly go over some of the techniques that I use when the bite is pretty much off, super slow, and you were just dying to, get that bite. A couple of the approaches I have are pretty simple. They look, I guess, like something that you would probably normally throw on in this cold weather. Down here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The weather's been, on average in the 30s, mid 30s, high 30s, and the water temperatures are fluctuating in the 40s. So the last time I went, which was actually this past weekend, and the water temperature was about 48 degrees, 47 degrees, and the bite was completely off. I would get a couple bites here and there, but I felt like they were like catfish bites or maybe even crappie bites. But it was super difficult, and I had to change my approach. And I'm going to go over some of the things that I did that were really effective for me. I have about, I don't even know how many baits here. I'm just going to briefly go over them and how I fish them. Usually in the beginning, what I usually do is I'll take a crankbait and I will throw it toward pockets in the lakes. I'll throw them toward windblown banks and in shallow water. This is a Spro, Little John MD, and it runs about 7 to 9 feet. And as you can see on here, on all my crankbaits and stuff like that, I usually put the depth on that it runs on there, just to, if I pick it up and look at it, I know how deep it runs. I don't have to look at the box or anything like that, because I usually don't have it with me. But I usually burn these, not necessarily burn them, but when I meant by burn, I meant I cast out hundreds of times, at these locations. The bite is going to be super slow, so casting in the same area a bunch of times may trigger them fish to bite. But the thing that I mainly look at when I pick out a crankbait during this time of the year is the size of the crankbait. And as you can see, this is fairly small, and the thickness of it, this is pretty thin. You usually want to go with a thinner crankbait because it gives off a thinner wobble. The bait fish this time of the year swim not super fast, but they swim slower, and they give off a really tight wiggle. And the baits that I usually try to go and pick out are the ones with the tight wiggles that are usually real thin and have smaller profiles. But another thing with this bait is when I do throw it out, I make sure I bring it in super slow. If the bite's really slow, I want to bring it in super slow. I'm going to throw it out as far as I can and just bring it in. Varying my retrieve from time to time. If they're not biting a really slow retrieve, I might have a start-stop retrieve, and just continue to throw it out as many times as I can in key locations for for bass in these cold weather conditions. But yeah, the little crankbait is something I like to go to first. Try to get out there and find those fish, and it's a good locator. The second bait I like to throw on there is a Rattletrap. This is actually by, I think, Lucky Craft. Oh, I'm sorry, Live Target. The appearance of it looks great. It has so many different colors on it. It almost looks real. This is one of the reasons why I like fishing it. And another reason why I like to use this, I'll tell you in a couple of minutes about why I like that appearance and how it's effective on the way that I guess retrieve it. But a lipless crankbait is really good too. I throw it along banks, shallow water, flats. I'll throw it up in coves or main lake pockets, and just to try to find that bite. And then once you do find that bite, you try to slow it down just a little bit. Not necessarily maybe with a lipless crankbait, but maybe with something a little bit slower, like maybe like a jig or a worm. But I love to burn these and maybe try to get that reaction bite. And if I can't do that, I slow it down with a slow retrieve, or even yo-yoing it. You're bringing it in, and then you lift your rod tip up and bring it down and let it rattle down. I really like that. The most effective way that I've been fishing this, especially with this cold water, is actually dragging it on the bottom. So it would be, I throw it out as far as I can, I set it or let it fall to the bottom, and I just drag it on the bottom. So it's probably hitting, you know, small rocks, going over little hills and stuff like that, and just creating that small little rattle. And I mean, those fish come up and it feels almost like a jig hit, something to just come up and just snags it. And I mean, you just set that hook. And but that's been the most effective way. I usually like to throw this and bring it in 100 miles an hour, but that hasn't been working for me. So I've been just throwing it out there and dragging it just like a jig. And with that sound, you know, your strike zone is going to be a lot further because they can hear it. It brings those fish in. But if it didn't have any rattle or anything like that, you know, you'd have to bring that bait right by the fish for it to attack it. But yeah, dragging it like a jig is something I like to do, you know, especially when that bite is off and that water's super cold. So dragging a lipless crankbait. The next little crankbait I like is a Lucky Shad by Strike King. And the profile is super small. It dives about 8 feet, and it also has a really nice tight wiggle to it. And with this bait, you probably want to throw it on some spinning gear with super light line, maybe like 6 to 8 pound test. Just, you know, with the lighter line, it gives it that better action. And with the crankbaits as well, you probably, I mean, you could throw those on, you know, your bait casters and, you know, maybe 10 to 12 pound line. And you know, once you start getting smaller profile baits, you want to lower the line size just to give it that better action. And you know, if the bite is off, you know, that just helps out just a little bit better, or a little bit more. The next is a smaller profile jerk bait. This one here is by Excalibur. It suspends super well, and the action is pretty erratic. It's really nice. The colors, I try to match it with the color of the bait fish that are in the water, and they're usually like white with the, you know, the little black speck and stuff like that. But the water's usually dirty, so I have like some kind of gold in there, red eyes. But yeah, moving this super slow and having a lot of time in between your jerks. So you know, a lot of guys, you know, do that jerk, pause, jerk, pause, jerk, pause. You know, they have that certain cadence, and they usually say when the water gets super cold, you want to have longer pauses. So a jerk bait is pretty effective, and I like to throw this around, you know, outside of some cover, main lake points, in pockets, and any kind of structure is usually pretty good. You want to throw it around it, not in it, because you know, jerk baits will have a tendency to get stuck, especially with these treble hooks hanging out and being exposed. As for the little Lucky Craft guy too, I like to throw that around cover, shallow water. It's got to be, you know, 8 foot or shallower. So you know, once it's in that shallower water, you know, it's diving down and digging in that water. But you want to bring this as slow as you can while it's hitting the bottom, and maybe pausing it from time to time, so it, you know, has that slow little that rise to it. And if those usually don't work, I try to go back to something that is super slow, using spinning reel, super light line. And the one thing that I really like is a fluke junior, a super small fluke, tied onto a swim bait hook. And what you do with that is you'll drag that on the bottom, so you have it dragging, and then from time to time you just let it pause, and then you might want to pop it. So I mean, this is the most effective way I usually fish it, you know, and it's taken me years to catch fish on these techniques, just because I do it all the time. So, you know, don't just think when you go out there, oh, well, you know, he catches fish, you know, with these techniques, why am I not catching these fish? You know, it just takes practice and time and figuring out that cadence and what the fish really like. So, you know, these are just some of the things that work for me, and I'm just sharing them with you guys, so maybe you guys can try them out and maybe figure them out and figure them fish out. But you know, the fish are super lethargic around this time of the year because it's super cold. Their metabolism are breaking down a little bit, and they're not really trying to do any kind of heavy swimming. So, you know, something small like this, looking like a little bait fish coming by, and, you know, almost looking like it's dying the way you're swimming it and dragging it, they're going to come up and, you know, they're going to just annihilate that. They're going to take it. And like I said, you want to do this on spinning gear, and you want to fish this in shallow water. If they're not biting in any of the shallow water, you can fish this in deep water. Deep water ranging from anywhere from, I guess, like 7 to 15 feet. I was catching them the other day in 13 to 14 feet with this, and I mean, they were just crushing it. Another really good bait, especially if you're not getting any kind of bites and you need to, you know, slow down your retrieve and your, I guess, the way of fishing, just to get that bite. You know, this is a Youngdinger from I guess Young Baits, and or a dinger. I guess it's just a dinger. But I have it on a shaky head, and with the hook exposed. If you're going to throw it into open water with no cover being around, you know, you can throw this open hook. It'll help out with some hook up to catch ratios. And if you're throwing it around some cover and stuff like that, you know, you want to probably make it a little weedless, so you're not getting it snagged up in any of that cover. But usually with this, I mean, I am just dragging this thing and moving it inches at a time and having long pauses in between it. Another thing that I like to do is I like to throw one of those little glass rattles into it, into the tail end of the worm. So as it's dragging or even just sitting there rolling around, it's got a slight rattle to it that draws those fish in. So you know, you can try this, and you also want to fish this with finesse. As in a finesse approach, using spinning gear, really light line. You want to make sure your hooks aren't super thick. Usually the thicker the hook, the thicker the line, just so that hook penetrates. So you want to use thinner hooks or thinner shaky head hooks with thinner line. The thinner line also helps out with, you know, that slow lethargic bite. So this is one of the things I like to use as well. I also will use one of these little Senkos or a little dinger on that jig swivel hook, and with that, the jig head will keep that bait down, and it will allow, with that swivel, it will allow that worm to kind of just like move freely and have that free action, which, you know, drives the fish crazy as well. The next thing I like to do is, if I'm not getting any bites, I'll go a little bit deeper and try to find these fish, and I will drag a jig or a football head jig with a crawdad trailer on it, super slow, and every once in a while I'll give it a little twitch to maybe have these arms up standing and acting like they're in defense mode. But this is a really good approach, and the thing that I like most about a jig is that you can fish it super slow, and the skirt flares out and it has some sort of motion, and the football jig will rock back and forth, just giving it the most subtle action, which also drives the fish crazy, and they'll come up and attack, especially if it's in their little strike zone. If you don't have a rattle on it, you probably want to drag it a little bit faster to cause some sort of vibrations and stuff like that to draw the fish in. But usually in this time, you want to try to do as much as you can. You want to use maybe some scent onto your trailers, spray it on there, or use a bait that has the scent built into it already. As a rage tail, they have that that exclusive coffee scent you know, mixed into it, so it's got a scent to it. But I also like to spray it with some nasty stuff in it, so it draws those fish in. And a rattle would be great too. Like I said, the sound travels further in water than those small little vibrations, so any kind of little sound or little clicking sound, rattle, you know, it's going to draw those fish into your bait. So there are a couple extra little things that I like to do with my baits as well. If the bite is still super dead, you know, a Dropshot Rig is usually pretty good. I don't use it too often just because, you know, I don't catch many fish on it, but I've caught some on it during this time of year. So using a Dropshot Rig with a small profile worm, this is black with, you know, some clear, and I don't know, I guess that's black and red polka dots within it. But you know, you want to mess around with your leaders depending on how far down the fish are. On the bottom, you know, if they're hugging the bottom, you probably want a shorter leader. If they're up a little bit higher, you probably want to lengthen the leader. But yeah, the bite's super settled. You probably want to just keep that tension on the top hook and just let the water, you know, move that bait. You probably don't want to do anything with it. You might just want to shake the the rod tip from time to time just to give it a little bit more action. But man, you probably just want to fish that super slow, allowing the water to, you know, use that for you or create that motion for you. Another bait that I have on here that another bait that I want to talk about that I don't have on here is actually a small spoon. I think it was sometime last year around this same time. I was throwing at Main Lake points, super deep, and I was just slowly popping a small jig. And on one of the points, I caught a 10-pound 2-ounce bass, and I had went over to another point, and I was fishing it for a while, probably like about 30-45 minutes. And right before I was about to leave, you know, I was still just popping it, just almost dragging a spoon on the bottom, and I caught a 913. So a spoon that this time of year, super cold, and moving it very slow is a really good thing too. One of the other baits I have up here, it's a Spool Tech lure. I had talked about one of those in my previous videos, but as you fish, I guess this fluke with that swim bait head, this swim bait head is super heavy, so it, you know, keeps it down on the bottom. Well, this Spool Tech lure, you can do the same thing with it. I mean, if you just look at the bait compared to this bait, the Spool Tech lure looks way more natural. It's got a boot tail, which is going to cause a little bit more action. Spool Tech has, you know, some sort of little rattle to it, which is going to, you know, not trigger those fish, but bring those fish in from a further distance. And I also like to fish it like I would this bait right here. You know, I let it sink all the way to the bottom, which has a super slow fall to it, and then once it's on the bottom, it'll actually sit, you know, just like this in the water. It will sit belly down and back up, just like it would be like a fish just laying on the bottom. And then when you pop it up, that boot tail is going to go, and then when you let it drop, it's going to slowly drop. And this was super effective as well. So a Spool Tech lure, this is the 4-inch fatty. They got that, you know, that leader technology. You can wind it back up, and it's got that steel leader, so that's not going to break off. But this bait here is fishing it super slow like I would that fluke and that swim jig head, is really effective. If you guys have any more questions or thoughts on some of these baits, you know, feel free to direct message me through Instagram at Bassin' with Buddy. You can, you know, hit me up on Facebook at Bassin' with Buddy as well. But yeah, these are some of the things that I do when the bite is off and I'm dying for a bite. I'll go to these little finesse type rigs and, you know, fish super slow. Same with these little crankbaits, like I was saying earlier. You want to, you know, these baits are usually baits you swim or you work real quick. But if you fish them slow and effective and in the right areas, you know, and have the patience, you know, you can really hammer some really big fish. So these are some of the tips I wanted to give you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for some more videos on Tuesday, and I'll see you next time.